Chapter 12. The Flowers of Heaven. Shadow, Yaraei, Cameron, and I walked into a school building with our flowers. Immediately we smelled a heavy stench that nearly swallowed the fragrance of our own blooms. To the human eye, the school looked very clean and perfectly ordered. Students were going from class to class like robots, greeting each other mechanically. But again, we could see in the spirit what was really happening. Demons crouched behind every corner, in windowsills, closets, and behind doors. Defecation and toxic mold covered the walls, floors, and ceilings, caked on for years, hard at the bottom layers, fresh on top. Disgusting. Most of the demons had been there a long time without being disturbed and were comatose. I walked up to a young woman and looked her in the eye. She smiled a blank smile and held out her hand for me to shake. I gave her a flower. She took it and held it up to smell it. She got a far-away, familiar look in her eyes, as if she had smelled it before. She grew a bit uneasy and shuddered. I had a sharp vision of her past and future. In her past, she had been given another flower, one from the stronghold that we had mowed down. Its fragrance had slowly gained control of her. In the future, she was shaking hands with a world leader, and in her palm was a detonator for the bomb she was wearing. Her face turned pale. She began to cough and fell to her knees, vomiting. A demon stirred in the shadow of the hallway behind her. It was the flower demon that had been assigned to her. He woke up suddenly and lunged forward, pinning her on her stomach and licking her neck with his poison as the smell tried to overtake her again. I stabbed him in the back of the neck with my knife, and he rolled off of her. Yaraei picked up the flower I had given her and helped the girl up. She took a deep draw of its fragrance and began to shake and cry. We walked her out and into the street, now smoldering with dead demons. The aroma of Christ had already started to take over the atmosphere. This scene was repeated throughout the school as we worked our way through to every student. Some were instantly set free, while others ran off, stumbling and groping as if blind. We prayed they would not be able to escape the fragrance of Christ for long. Some of the demons tried to escape down the alleyways, but the perfume was too much for them. They died whimpering as they were transformed back into wilting flowers oozing green-black sap, cut off from their evil lifeline. We continued to pass out heavenly flowers. The students that came out of their stupors were shocked to see what they had been living under. Some of them rallied together quickly and began the cleanup. It was nasty, but they were amazing in their zeal to get the job done. We all spread out into the city to other schools, hospitals, neighborhoods, and many workplaces. The flower angels were always waiting to reload us. Students and others who had been transformed quickly were already helping us pass out flowers. Others grouped together to sweep the dead demon flowers into heaps and burn them. The stench was not enough to overtake the fragrance of Christ. It took over all the surrounding cities as we spilled out into the region on our mission. Everywhere, people were rebuilding and restoring on new foundations. Those who had gotten free in other cities brought in many supplies for renovation. The network of nurses was growing fast, and we thanked God for them as they arrived fresh on the scene. They were no longer weary. Many had risen up from the ashes of war and revived to come and join them. Teachers of Christ's love showed up, laying foundations of truth in the students' spirits as they worked to restore the buildings. Our friends from our first Change to Serve city builders came to help. Yaraei's parents were nurses from that town, and they came to get her. We told her parents they should be very proud of her, and they were. She left us carrying the fragrance of Christ box in her hands, ready for the next dream. Cameron, Shadow, and I went back for our horses and flew off into the late afternoon sky. We could see from above that the restoration was really moving ahead fast as everyone did their part. Cameron signaled for me to play The Gathering Blare on my shofar. We all converged in flight and headed to the mountaintop. Our soldiers flew into formation from the different areas on the ground, lining up in the air behind us as we soared on. We formed a circle in midair above the ominous peak. I looked at the great key around Jade's neck. Cameron held it high and shouted so all could hear. "We have fought a great war and have brought freedom and truth to many. Again, you have honored us with your bravery and unity. We have lost some of our dear brothers and sisters, but we shall meet them again. My wife and I will go into this stronghold alone with the captains and their wives. We know that most of the Islamic horde in this area is demolished. Go on to your next rest stop, and we shall see each other where next our Lord brings us together. Passion and praise be in your hearts." At this, he motioned for us and headed toward the peak at lightning speed. We dived straight down into a dark and vast tunnel-like opening, flying fast on our horses through the damp stench. Our helmets snapped down into visibility, and the lights switched on to cut through the blackness. Our horses slowed as they neared the floor, their stamping hooves echoing through the inside of the summit as they landed. We could sense there was no life, no enemy troops, nothing. "Hold," said Cameron, putting his hand up. An angel appeared, lighting up the entire cavern. He held a thick, clear plastic hose, which ran all the way up the tunnel we had just flown through. A metal attachment with a keyhole covered the hose head. The angel held the hose out to Cameron. Cameron took the key from around Jade's neck, fit it into the opening, and it clicked into place. The key now looked more like a cross, and its arms were some kind of mechanism to open the hose. The angel pointed to the walls of the great stronghold, where we could see the roots of the dead demon flowers exposed and still attached. A sweeping network of roots entwined to hold each other in place. "Get behind me and hold the hose," Cameron shouted to us, and turned the arms of the cross key. The hose began to shake violently and filled up with light. The pressure was building as we held on with all our might. Then light exploded out of the hose like liquid fireworks. We learned fast how to control the vibrating hose as we began to spray walls inside the mountain and burn the roots, all that was left of our victory above. For hours we held the hose and sprayed the entire stronghold until it was saturated. The angel nodded, took the tube, and shot back up the way we had come. We mounted quickly and followed. Shadow gave a small but mighty roar as we bolted out of the mountain. We realized the entire structure of the stronghold had been held together by the system of roots, which was now caving in on itself. We narrowly escaped and watched from above as the mountain actually sucked itself inward and shrank down to a raised mound of enormous circumference. Our friends, the worker angels, appeared on tractors in their overalls again. We waved and waited to see what they were up to. This time they brought gardening tools, massive tillers, plows, and seed dispensers. They plowed the leftover mount and planted thousands of rows of good seed. I thought how I would love to come back here to see this flower mound someday and take in the fragrance of the flowers of heaven. Shadow jumped up and down on my lap, and there was Jesus on his horse, holding a hose full of light, smiling. Other worker angels surrounded Jesus, and then solemnly they drew apart. Behind them, we saw more of our angel friends on flying horses with large bundles tied behind their saddles. "What is happening?" I asked. "What is in those blankets?" "Your friends who were lost in the battle," Jesus answered. "You will meet them again another time. We honor them." We all took a moment of silence to thank God for our faithful comrades and bless their families. One of our best captains was on the back of one of those horses. His wife held her head up bravely, wiping away her tears. We prayed over her and sang, "Honor and glory for the soldiers' stories, the martyrs of modern day. The secret sacrifice, the place without pride you fought with your life to pay. Now to his throne, your heavenly home, as your spirits sail away. Hail, hail, you beautiful ones, with honor and glory array. With honor and glory array." We saw them then as their spirits rose up from the backs of the horses. Their faces were radiant, skin like molten honey, and their feet stained ruby red as they swirled away, disappearing into another dimension.